Jayson Tatum, he played more than 3,700 minutes across this season, which was more than 800. It was like 700 and change, 740, 750 more than Steph Curry on the other side. It was, hundreds more than any of his Celtics teammates, even those regular, guys in the rotation, fellow starters, whatever. Like he played more minutes. He's played more. I don't know what the exact number is, but Jayson Tatum has played more minutes since the resumption from COVID, I
tweeted that a couple of weeks ago because I was curious.
Yeah, so I'm probably stealing it from you. Then anybody,
it's not close. It's not close. And by the way, Olympics.
Yeah,
was number two.
Right. So we have to acknowledge that, if he looked gassed there the last couple of games of the finals, he was. But people will also look at it and it's fair to say, look, this guy was 24. How much should, he be able to handle? I think on the one hand, he went out and obviously proved, to anyone that said, and there were people, Jayson Tatum isn't yet a number one, or he's not yet that guy that can take you to the NBA finals or can win you a championship. Well, Jayson Tatum, he didn't do it alone, but he largely carried this team to the NBA finals. He was the clear number one, as good as Jayson Tatum or Jaylen Brown was throughout the year, to your point. Jayson Tatum was the number one. He was the guy that, he was the guy that, and had so many great moments in the postseason throughout those first three rounds. But in the finals, whether you want to say he was gassed, whether you want to say he wilted, wasn't ready for the moment, was, too much bitching at officials, too many careless turnovers, too much driving for contact. We could look at it any number of different ways, obviously. But the fact of the matter is, 6 games, he really didn't even have one good one. One kind of okay one, but by his standards, a very lofty standard that we hold him to, he had a very bad NBA finals. And so where does, he owned it after, to his credit, he owned it after, but where does he go from here? Knowing full well, like most greats, and if he's going to be a great, and I think he will, most people think he will, most greats don't win a title at 24. He's ahead of schedule in terms of even just getting there. But where does he go from here?
Well, it's interesting because think about LeBron, not just his first final, the second one too. 2007 against San Antonio, when guess what? He was the top guy like Tatum, and they crushed him and they swept the series and they took him out of it completely. And then the meltdown, right? 2011 against Dallas, and LeBron had that really bad finals.
Couldn't even, JJ Barea was guarding him. Couldn't even get by JJ Barea.
And we've had this conversation, right? Like, to me, I know once in a while, it's not like we get killed for it, but I tend to have a more national view, and that's my style, right, in calling the games. Obviously, I'm telling the Celtics story, and I'm telling it from that perspective, and I'm seeing it through that lens, but it's impossible for me to not pull back and see the bigger picture of NBA history as it unfolds, Steph's place and his legacy as these finals are happening, the passing of the torch or the not passing of the torch, and Jayson Tatum now following the same path that LeBron went through, and that Isaiah Thomas went through, and that Michael Jordan went through, and that there's something comforting about it, that it's now sort of, part of the tapestry. And of course he's ahead of the curve in any way. It's an interesting point. A couple people brought this up, and I got to thinking about it, that if you call it meltdown, whatever we're calling the turnovers and the general play. 6 years ago, or 5 years ago, 4 years ago, his rookie year, they go to Game 7 against Cleveland and they lose the game, but it wasn't this way. It wasn't like folding under the moment. It wasn't turnovers. It's interesting to me that team that was so young, and Tatum and Jaylen were so much, Jayson Jaylen were so much younger 4 years ago, and yet they didn't lose that way in the Cleveland series. Whatever, it's interesting that it would happen now. I think we need more time away from it. We're doing the same thing that we said I hope people eventually don't do, is Jayson Tatum did not have a good final. Why were the Celtics in the finals? Because Jayson Tatum willed them there and played against Durant and Giannis and Jimmy Butler for 3 rounds, beat all 3 of them, had some of the most epic games anybody his age has ever had. I think where it hit home with me, some point somebody either tweeted this out or this little factoid came out, and I think it often bears repeating. Jayson Tatum is younger than Tom Brady was when he won the first Super Bowl. Right. That is, whoa, okay. Let's just take in a minute. And that I think a lot of people are talking about this today, but I've been mentioning it during the series that Steph was 26 and LeBron was 27 and Michael was 28. And, the KG, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen were all in their 30s when they won the first championship. So I just, knowing if I'm falling back on the history of the league, forget the individual nature of Tatum and how he's always gotten better in every situation, that the history of the league says that the great players go through this, learn from it, and get better.
Yeah. Does the way that he played part of that finals bother you, though, in terms of just stylistically, like, the driving specifically for contact and just how erratic he was, under and around the hoop and missing so many layups as a result? It seemed like he was really just getting away from so many of the things that he did well throughout the year, throughout the playoffs.
Those are the things that happened in December and January. I asked Ime last night, and what turned out to be our 106th and final pregame conversation of the year. I said, you and I have had this conversation, had 106 of these, and a lot of them early in the year, we're talking about driving into contact, turnovers, complaining to officials. Why are we having this conversation again in June that you and I had so many times in November and December? And I think, by the way, the Warriors play into that because it's different when you're playing against a guy 6 or 7 games in a row and you can lock in and to win the championship. Steve Kerr knew on his list. I mean, obviously Tatum is number 1. Number 2 was taking away the Rob Williams, pack the paint. The Celtics have to make threes to beat us. And by the way, when the Celtics made their threes, they were unbeatable this year by anybody. And that was the recipe to beat the Celtics, is make them shoot threes. Saw what happened in game 1. And, that was the difference. But yeah, I think, of course it's frustrating. It should be frustrating. It's supposed to be. The Celtics, in large part because of the way Golden State played them, did not learn the lessons that the Warriors were begging, they were teaching them throughout the entire series about having to change, stop being stubborn.